If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted with everything, this story is for you. Smash that like button, subscribe for more real-life revenge stories, and buckle up, because what started as heartbreak ends in poetic justice. Every day felt the same until I met her. And the moment I did, everything I thought I knew about myself began to fall apart. I wasn't supposed to be anyone special, just another face blending into the background. Just another guy in a dented delivery van, rolling through the suburbs with cardboard boxes full of other people's dreams. You know the kind. Amazon orders last-minute gifts, workout equipment no one would ever use. People ordered joy, and I delivered it. But I never really had any of my own. My name is Jacob, and back then, my world was small. I lived in a one-bedroom apartment above a closed-down pizza joint. It smelled like burnt cheese and broken promises. My days blurred into nights, my nights into numbness. I was surviving, not living. But none of that mattered when I saw her. It was late October, that strange time when the air gets colder, but not cold enough for people to stop pretending it's still summer. I was behind on rent, exhausted, and one taillight away from getting pulled over again. Then, I got a new delivery address. Weird one. A gated community with a fancy name. Swan's Hollow. Never been there before. Hell, I didn't even know it existed. The gate buzzed open after I pressed the intercom. A smooth female voice answered. Calm, polished, with the kind of accent that made you sit up straighter without knowing why. Yes? Oh, delivery? Come right in. I'll be waiting. I pulled in. The house was ridiculous. Modern glass, manicured hedges, and the kind of door that probably cost more than my van. I half expected a celebrity to answer. Instead, it was her, Emma. She opened the door barefoot, standing there like she was born in soft lighting. Tall, thin, a white cashmere sweater hanging off one shoulder. Her smile wasn't just beautiful, it recognized you. That kind of smile, the kind that makes you forget how much pain you're in. You're late, she said with a smirk. Traffic, I mumbled. I'm kidding. Come in, it's cold. I hesitated. Delivery guys don't go inside. That's rule 1. But she insisted, and I broke the rule. The inside of the house looked like a lifestyle blog. Elegant, curated, too perfect to be real. On the table, a glass of red wine was half finished. There were soft jazz notes floating from somewhere I couldn't see. I dropped the package by the couch. Thanks, she said, her tone suddenly warmer. You look tired. Long day. I laughed nervously. You could say that. Then she looked at me like she saw through me. You work too hard. You don't sleep much. And I guess no one's asked how you're really doing in a while. That stopped me cold. She wasn't wrong. But how could she know? Before I could answer, she offered me something dangerous, not wine, not a compliment. Attention. I kept thinking about her after that. Every delivery, every red light. That voice, that gaze, that way she made me feel like I mattered. Was I pathetic? Maybe. But when your days are spent invisible, someone seeing you feels like salvation. It started small. She'd accidentally order things every few days. Then she'd wait at the door, laugh at my dumb jokes, ask questions that felt too personal but not invasive. Then came the night she asked me to stay. You always leave so fast, she said, her hand brushing mine. Just one drink. I should have said no. God knows I should have said no. But loneliness is a hunger. And Emma fed it like a pro. Within weeks, I was staying over. Not every night, but more often than not. She made me breakfast, bought me clothes, asked me about my dreams. For the first time, someone was treating me like I had value. Not just as a delivery boy, but as a man. She said things like, "You're too good for the world you're stuck in. You deserve more. I could help you." Looking back, I can't tell when it stopped being love and started being manipulation. Because at the time, it felt like the realest thing I'd ever known. There were small cracks, moments when she'd say things that didn't quite add up, like how she had a family trust but didn't work, or how she knew a lot about online security but claimed she hated computers. One time, I woke up to find her talking on the phone in French. She hung up the second she saw me. "Work call," she said. "Nothing important." I let it go, because I didn't want to lose her. And when you're drowning, you don't question the lifeboat, even if it's leaking. It started with small things. She'd asked to borrow $50, then $100, Then she said her accounts were frozen, something about a dispute with her bank. She needed help covering her credit card for just a few days. She cried when she asked, said she was embarrassed. "You can say no," she whispered. "I'll understand." But I didn't say no, because I was already in too deep. By the time I realized how much she'd taken, it was too late. One morning, I woke up and she was gone. No note, no text, no trace. In my savings, every dollar I'd stashed away in my pathetic little attempt at a future, gone too. I tore through the house, tried calling, messaging, checking hospitals. I even filed a police report. But deep down, I already knew. She didn't disappear. She escaped. And I wasn't her first victim. Have you ever met someone who made you feel like you mattered for the first time in your life? It's not just intoxicating. It's lethal. After Emma vanished, I kept thinking back, rewinding every moment, every glance, every laugh, every whisper under the sheets. And I realized something horrifying. She hadn't chosen me by accident. No, she profiled me like a mark in a con. And the worst part? I made it easy. Let me back up for a second. Before Emma, I wasn't just lonely, I was isolated. My mom died when I was 16. Dad checked out not long after. No siblings, no real friends left in the city. Just me, working 3 jobs and sleeping 4 hours a night. I had dreams once. I wanted to be a photographer. I used to see the world in framing and light. But dreams don't pay bills. And when you're poor, the world doesn't care what you're passionate about. So I delivered packages. I smiled politely, took tips, drove through blizzards, delivered joy to everyone but myself. And then she opened that door. Emma was everything I wasn't. Confident, elegant, unbothered. She looked at me like I was rare, like I was interesting, like she saw something in me, something even I'd forgotten existed. "You have this quiet strength," she said once, tracing the veins on my arm, like someone who survived things he doesn't talk about. I didn't reply, not because she was wrong, but because she was exactly right. Emma didn't just learn what I liked. She learned what I longed for, and then she became it. That's the part people don't understand about manipulators like her. They don't use brute force. They don't scream or threaten. They reflect you. They become the thing you crave, the parent you never had, the lover you never thought you deserved, the voice in your head that finally tells you you're enough. But it's all scaffolding. It looks real until you lean on it. We had rituals. Wine at midnight. Candles in every room. She'd make these small, lavish meals, charcuterie boards, pasta from scratch. She said she hated takeout. "Food made by strangers is food made with indifference," she'd whisper. I thought it was poetic. Now I realize it was a sales pitch. A disguise. Because everything about Emma was carefully composed. Just enough eccentricity to be charming. Just enough mystery to be irresistible. She asked me about my childhood, my insecurities, my regrets. But she never gave me real answers about hers. When I pressed, she'd say things like, "Some stories are too sad to tell," or "You wouldn't love me if you knew everything." That kind of line, it hooks you deeper. It turns love into a rescue mission. The first time she borrowed money, it was for something stupid, a payment that bounced, an app subscription she forgot to cancel. "I'll Venmo you tomorrow," I swear. She never did, but she'd distract me. Kisses, long nights, promises of the future. Once, she brought up moving in together. Said she found a place we could split, something with a big kitchen and natural light for my photography comeback. She made me believe in a version of myself I wanted to be. And that's the hook. She didn't just take my money. She took my vision of the future and replaced it with her own, one that made her the center of everything. After she disappeared, I kept texting her. "Emma, are you okay? I'm not mad. I just want to talk. Please tell me you're safe." Nothing. Not even a read receipt. I called from different numbers. Even used a friend's phone once. She answered. Once, and hung up the moment she heard my voice. That's when the anger started to grow. Before that, it was grief, shame, confusion. But after that, it was something sharper, something that wanted answers. And justice. I didn't check my bank account for days. I was too afraid. But when I finally did, I sat on the floor and stared for hours. She hadn't just taken a few $100s here and there. She drained me. Maxed out the credit card I'd let her use once for just a coffee run. Took out a PayPal loan in my name. Even used my info to open a second Venmo account and send herself thousands labeled as consulting fees. It was like watching your life unravel in bullet points. I was broke. Flat broke. No savings. No backup plan. Just a pile of debt. And an empty bed that still smelled like her perfume. I couldn't sleep. Couldn't work. I'd stopped mid-delivery, hands shaking. I started drinking again, just enough to numb the shame. Friends noticed. My boss pulled me aside. "You okay, Jacob?" "Yeah, just tired. Always tired." But I wasn't just tired. I was unraveling. It wasn't just heartbreak. It was identity collapse. Because everything I believed about her, about myself, about what we had been a lie. And if that was a lie, what else was? One night, I was sitting in a 24-hour diner, nursing a coffee I couldn't afford when an older waitress came over and said something I'll never forget. She looked me dead in the eye and said, "Whatever she took, don't let her take you." She didn't know anything about me, but something in her voice hit like a punch to the chest. And in that moment, something clicked. I couldn't undo what had happened, but I could fight back. Not with rage, not with violence, with truth. And the first step was learning exactly who Emma really was. Because I had a feeling Emma wasn't even her real name. The truth wasn't hiding. It was sitting right there in the open, tucked inside her little contradictions, her almost lies, her clever distractions. And I didn't see it because I didn't want to. It's strange how memory works when you're grieving a lie. After Emma left, I began replaying everything. Not like a love story, but like a crime scene. Every word, every moment, every red flag I'd mistaken for a red ribbon. It was all there. I just hadn't been ready to see it. Let's start with the obvious. The house. That stunning, modern home in Swan's Hollow, with the designer furniture and the expensive wine and the subtle smell of jasmine and money. I always assumed it was hers. She never said so, not directly, but she let me believe it. When I asked what she did for work, she'd wave it off. Freelance consulting. It's boring. I make enough. But after she vanished, I Googled the address. And what I found punched the breath out of me. The property wasn't registered under her name. It belonged to a shell company based in Nevada. No website, no phone number, just a P.O. box. And Emma? Emma didn't show up on the lease. Not even as a tenant. She didn't own that house. She was squatting in it. Or worse, she was using it the way magicians use stages. As a trick. I didn't stop there. I found the HOA number for Swan's Hollow. Pretended I was trying to deliver a package. The woman on the line sounded annoyed but polite. "I'm looking for an Emma Vallon. We don't have anyone by that name registered. She lives at redacted address." That's one of our vacant models. Not occupied, just staged. Vacant, staged, just like her. I went full detective. Started combing through our texts, our photos, our conversations. Not with love in my eyes, with suspicion. And that's when I started seeing the holes. Her bank froze her account. The same week, she asked to use mine. She didn't have Venmo, but had a perfect understanding of how to bypass their ID verification. She said she was an only child, but once mentioned her brother in passing, then denied it when I asked. It was all inconsistencies. Tiny fractures in the glass. And I'd missed every single one. There was a drawer in her room, always locked. She said it was where she kept her girl stuff. Nothing exciting. You wouldn't want to see it. One time she caught me looking at it. She didn't yell, didn't scold me. She just looked sad. "You really don't trust me, do you?" I don't know what's real anymore. That's not my fault. But it was in that drawer. I couldn't stop thinking about it. So I went back to the house, to Swan's Hollow, at night. And when I tell you what I found, you'll understand why everything changed. The house was still vacant. Furniture stripped. No signs of life. But the drawer? Still there. Built into the wall. Locked, of course. So I broke it. Inside was a small leather pouch, a few USB drives, and a box of IDs. Not one. 9. 9 different women. All with her face. All with different names. Different birth dates. Different states. Emma Vallon. Rachel Novak. Samantha Dune. Elise Trent. The list went on. She wasn't just a liar. She was a shapeshifter. I took the pouch and drove home, heart pounding. locked the door, closed the blinds, sat at my desk, staring at the USB like it might explode. Then I plugged it in. There were folders organized by year. Inside, screenshots, spreadsheets, photos, audio files. She wasn't just running a scam. She was documenting it. Like she was proud. One folder was labeled Prospects. Each subfolder had a man's name. Some I recognized from photos she'd shown me, old boyfriends she'd called them. But here they were victims. There were notes. Divorced, lonely. Trust issues. Financially stable. Weak boundaries. Trauma bond potential high. Uses humor to deflect pain. Mother died early. Craves maternal validation. Will forgive emotional manipulation. Reading my own entry felt like being autopsied while still alive. Jacobum. Ideal subject. Kind, generous. Starved for affection. No family. Will not go to police. I threw up in my sink. This wasn't a woman scamming to survive. This was sport to her. A calculated, clinical breakdown of human psychology, using love as the weapon and loneliness as the wound. And I wasn't the only one bleeding. I found dozens of files, dozens of victims, photos of gifts, bank transfers, social media accounts. Some are from years ago. Some, heartbreakingly, had messages from men still trying to reach her. Hey, just checking in. Hope you're okay. I miss you. Please answer. You said you loved me. She didn't love any of us. She loved the game. That's when something changed. I wasn't just heartbroken anymore. I wasn't even angry. I was awakened. This wasn't just about me. This was about stopping her. Not just for revenge, but for justice. Because every file, every message, every broken man in that folder told the same story. I thought I was the only one, and I wasn't. I backed up the drive, made copies, printed everything. I created a new folder on my desktop, Operation Swan. Because if Emma could run her cons like a business, so could I. But my business would be exposing her. And I was just getting started. One day, she was in my bed whispering about the future. The next, she was gone. Her clothes, her phone, her signature jasmine perfume. Everything erased like she'd never existed. She'd even deleted her social media accounts, the few she'd let me see. At first, I believed it was panic. Maybe she got scared. Maybe something happened. But now I knew it was routine. Emma didn't disappear. She relocated. She molted like a serpent shedding skin. And I was determined to follow her trail wherever it led. I didn't eat. I didn't sleep. I barely worked. My life became a rotating cycle of research, screenshots, message boards, burner accounts, and blurry screenshots. I studied her like an exam I had to pass, because if I failed, she'd keep doing this to other people. And I couldn't live with that. From the IDs in her pouch, I chose the most recent, Elise Trent, a Georgia address. The ID looked legit, watermark, barcode, everything. But the address? It didn't exist. Still, the name gave me a place to start. I began searching Elise Trent on every platform I could think of: Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, even Pinterest. And finally a hit. An old Instagram account. Inactive. Only 3 posts. All selfies. All unmistakably her. Different hair, different makeup, but the same unmistakable smirk. The bio said, digital creative strategist, lover of wine, wit, and whispered lies. That last part? That wasn't irony. That was a confession. I kept digging. Every ID had a name, a fake backstory, and a man she drained. But something else became clear. She rotated through the same cycle. Step 1. Rent a luxury home, short-term, through shell companies or third-party platforms. Step 2. Pose as a consultant, writer, or digital nomad. Low footprint, high status. Step 3. Target emotionally vulnerable men, usually overworked, lonely, or grieving. Step 4. Love bomb them, extract access, and vanish. Washington rinse. Repeat. It wasn't just a pattern. It was a system. Then I found something chilling. One folder on the USB was titled Coordinators. Inside, a list of burner emails, phone numbers, and usernames. At least 5 other people, male and female. I couldn't be sure who they were at first, but then I saw the line that made my skin crawl. Split 40/30/30 for Jacob M. May August. She'd share the profits. I wasn't just a personal target. I was a project. This wasn't some solo grifter with a fake ID and seductive voice. This was a team, a network, a business model built on broken hearts. That's when I decided to take a risk. I messaged one of the other victims from the prospects folder, a man named Colin who'd apparently sent her over $9,000 labeled as therapy consulting. I found him on LinkedIn, of all places. Software engineer, divorced, living in Seattle. I sent a simple message. You knew her as Elise. I knew her as Emma. I think we've both been conned. Can we talk? He replied in 10 minutes. We talked for hours. Colin was sharp, cautious, and filled with the same mix of shame and fury that had poisoned me for weeks. He told me how he met her in an online support group for grief after losing his mother. She messaged him privately, said she understood, said she lost hers too. She made me feel seen, man. It wasn't just sex. She said things only my mother used to say. Emma, or Elise, in his case, had used the exact same tactics. Same terms of endearment. Same lies about bank issues. Same gaslighting when he got suspicious. I thought I was the only idiot, Colin admitted. That line again. I'd hear it 4 more times before the week was over. Colin gave me another name, Theo, who had briefly mentioned a mysterious woman he dated who vanished after 2 months. Y contaste Tao. Then Theo led me to Mason. Then Mason to Ethan. Each of us thought we were the one. Each of us had a story that sounded exactly the same. Each of us had lost something. Money, yes, but more importantly, trust, dignity, hope. Emma didn't just steal from us. She rewrote us. I started a shared Google Drive. Organized files. Timelines. Photos. Phone numbers. Message logs. One of the guys, Ethan, was a cybersecurity analyst. He cracked 3 of her burner accounts and found patterns that linked them back to shared VPNs and fake business sites. Another guy, Theo, was a graphic designer. He compared her profile pics across accounts and created a face-matching dataset. We were building a case, not just for revenge, but for exposure, and maybe legal justice too. That became the obsession. Where was she now? What name was she using? Who was she targeting next? Then we got lucky. Colin stumbled on a new Facebook profile under the name Vivian Castle. Barely 3 posts. All aesthetic lifestyle shots. White wine, roses, beach sunsets. But the face? Emma. Same eyes. Same smirk. She dyed her hair red and added a fake nose ring, but it was her. In one post, she geotagged a beach town in North Carolina. Bingo. I cashed out what little I had left and booked a bus ticket to North Carolina. Why? Because justice wasn't coming to me. I had to go to it. And I wasn't just going to confront her. I was going to trap her. But I couldn't do it alone. I needed allies, witnesses, evidence, and above all, patience. Because this time, Emma wouldn't see me coming. She played with masks. Now she was about to see what happened when one of her victims stopped playing. I used to think heartbreak was loud, but it's not. It's quiet. It's the silence that screams when no one is watching. After Emma disappeared, it felt like someone had pressed pause on the world, except my world. Everyone else kept living, moving, laughing. The city still breathed, still honked and shimmered and blinked with life. But me? I was frozen. There's something about betrayal that doesn't hit all at once. It creeps. It lingers. It shows up at red lights and grocery stores, and in the middle of a sentence when your brain decides to flash an image of her face, laughing, lying, stealing. She didn't just vanish with my savings. She took oxygen with her. And I hadn't realized I'd been holding my breath the whole time. I stopped using the bedroom. The sheets still smelled like her. A mix of jasmine, shampoo, and whatever brand of soap she used that made her skin feel like velvet. So I slept on the couch, drank until my mind blurred, watched old sitcoms on mute because the laughter felt fake and I didn't trust joy anymore. Mail piled up. Bills went unpaid. Food spoiled in the fridge. Some days I didn't speak at all. Other days I screamed. Not loud enough for the neighbors to hear, just enough to feel like I hadn't gone completely silent inside. I avoided mirrors for weeks. Not because I was afraid of my face, but because I was afraid of the man behind it. The one who let himself be played. The one who gave too much, too fast, and called it love. I saw weakness. I saw failure. And I hated him. But then, one night, deep into a fifth of cheap bourbon, I stared anyway. I looked at the bags under my eyes, the stubble, the dullness in my gaze. And I said aloud, "You let her do this to you." Then I punched the mirror. It didn't break, but my knuckles bled anyway. Here's something people don't tell you about emotional devastation. It makes you forget who you were before it, what music you liked, what foods you enjoyed, what dreams used to matter. Everything before Emma felt like a dream, and everything after felt like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. There was one night I almost didn't make it through. I sat on the ledge of my tiny apartment balcony, 5 stories up, and imagined the fall. Not because I wanted to die, but because dying felt simpler than enduring this slow rot of shame and emptiness. But then I thought of my mother, of how she used to tell me, "You're tougher than you think, baby. The world will try to crush you, but it can't own you." And something inside me whispered, "Not like this. Not for her." I climbed back inside, and I cried for the first time in years. Grief does strange things. One night, I found myself going through an old box of my mom's stuff. Letters, old photographs, voice recordings, things I hadn't touched in a decade. She was the only person who ever made me feel truly loved before Emma. And reading her words, hearing her voice, something sparked. People will hurt you, Jacob. Sometimes on purpose, sometimes by accident. But pain doesn't get to rewrite your story. Only you do. I clutched the recorder like a lifeline. And right then, I made a decision. I was done being wreckage. I was going to be the storm. The next morning, I cleaned my apartment, threw out the sheets, donated the clothes she'd bought me, wiped my phone, deleted every text, every voicemail, every photo. I shaved, ate a real breakfast, called my landlord and begged for a payment plan. Then I pulled out my laptop and created a spreadsheet titled Operation Recovery, Phase 1 Me, Therapy Budget, $0. Gym plan, YouTube workouts, and long walks. Nutrition, no more instant noodles. Sleep, at least 5 hours a night. Goals: 1. Survive. 2. Heal. 3. Revenge. Not revenge out of spite. Revenge as reclamation. Revenge as justice. Revenge as closure. As I healed, I started studying. Not just Emma, but people like her. I read books on manipulation. Watched videos about narcissists, sociopaths, covert abusers. I discovered a term that hit me in the chest like a bullet. Love bombing, followed by trauma bonding, gaslighting, future faking, financial grooming. She'd done all of it, like she'd read from a manual. And maybe she had, because predators like her don't operate blindly. They refine their cruelty over years, over victims. But they all have one fatal flaw. They think they're untouchable. I started journaling, writing letters to myself, to the Jacob who fell for her, the one who ignored the red flags, who thought love could fix pain, who thought attention meant affection. Here's one I still remember. You weren't stupid. You were vulnerable. You weren't weak. You were honest. And she didn't break you. She revealed how badly you wanted to be whole. That's not shameful. That's human. I wrote it, but I didn't believe it. Not yet. But the more I wrote, the more I began to feel again. Not just pain, not just anger, but purpose. Here's what changed everything. I realized revenge wasn't about making her cry. It was about making me whole. And that meant doing the work. Rebuilding my finances. Repairing my self-worth. Reconnecting with who I was before she invaded my life. But I also knew this. If I stayed silent, she'd do it again. To someone else. To someone just like me. So I didn't just have a right to go after her. I had a duty. I wasn't healed, not by a long shot, but I was functioning. And more importantly, I was focused. Focused on a plan, on the research, on tracking her newest alias, on building a network of other victims. I wasn't Jacob the delivery boy anymore. I was Jacob the ghost hunter, the truth digger, the man who refused to stay broken. And in the darkest corner of my heart, I whispered a promise. Every predator leaves a trail. Most just pray you never learn how to follow it. It started with something small. I was sitting in a greasy diner off the highway, the kind of place where every table has a different story and most of them end in disappointment. I was halfway through a plate of cold pancakes when my waitress, a tired-looking woman with fire engine red nails, dropped the bill and said, "You remind me of one of our regulars. She always sits in that corner booth. Fancy woman. Always leaves lipstick on the mugs. Smells like heaven and hell combined." I looked up. Red hair. Yeah, real red. Not natural. She come in recently? Couple days ago. With some guy. Looked smitten. Same as the last one. My heart pounded. Not just because it sounded like Emma, but because I knew it was her. Suddenly the world snapped into sharp focus. The hum of the AC. The flickering of the overhead light. The smear of syrup on my fork. I felt alive again. Not hopeful. Not happy. But fueled. Emma, or Vivian, as we'd last found her, was here. In this town. In this diner. And more importantly, she wasn't alone. That night, I sprinted back to the cheap motel I was staying in and opened the laptop. Checked the shared victim database we'd built. This was a new alias. No Vivian Castle listed in this part of the state. But if Emma was still operating here, that meant she'd begun targeting someone new. So I set a trap. A digital one. I created 3 fake profiles on a dating site popular with mid-30s professionals. Each had the same bait. A recently divorced man with money, loneliness, and a deep appreciation for authentic conversation. All I had to do was wait, and wait, and wait. On the 3rd day, one of the profiles matched with a woman named Vera Caulfield. Red hair, no public photos, but one blurry black and white selfie with a wide-brim hat. I reverse image searched the photo. Nothing. But the pose? I recognized it. She'd taken the same pose in a photo she sent me 2 years ago. Different hair, same sly smirk, same delicate fingers wrapped around a wine glass. "Looks artsy," she'd once said. "Looks staged," I'd replied. And that was the first time she laughed at me. Now I laugh back. I messaged her from the fake profile. Took my time. We chatted for hours. She asked all the same questions she asked me 2 years ago. Where I worked, what my family was like, what my emotional needs were. But this time, I knew what she was doing. She was assessing, profiling, scouting her next mark. I saved every message, screenshotted every line. Then I passed the info to Colin, the first victim I contacted, and our new tech lead, Ethan. Within 12 hours, they'd traced her IP to a luxury apartment complex just outside Wilmington. Unit 7B. Guess what else we found? Another shell company. Same structure. Same setup. Different name. I surveilled her for days. She had a new man. Mid-40s. Soft belly, sad eyes, expensive shoes. She paraded him in and out of that apartment like she was proud to be his arm candy. I watched them laugh in wine bars, shop in boutiques, stroll along beachside trails. And every time he looked at her like she hung the stars, my stomach turned. Because I was him once. And I knew exactly how this ended. She'd break him, drain him, disappear. Not this time. I needed to get closer. So I created a fake business card. Jacob Marin, Property Appraisal Services. Wore khakis. Got a clipboard. Faked a smile. Knocked on her door. She opened it. And for a moment, I swear she looked right through me. Not recognition. Not shock. Just that pause. That cold, calculating pause that tells you the brain behind the eyes is scanning every possible outcome. "Can I help you?" she asked. That voice. Smooth. Soft. Weaponized. "Yes, ma'am. We're conducting market appraisals on local units for valuation purposes." She smiled. Emma was always good at smiling. "I'm just renting. Don't know anything about market value." "No problem. May I ask how long you've been here?" "Couple weeks. Thinking about making it permanent." Her eyes narrowed, and in that split second of silence, I saw it. She knew. Maybe not who I was, but that something was off. "Can I see your badge?" she asked. Game over. I left before it got worse. Didn't run. Just walked. Fussed. She didn't follow. She didn't need to. Because 3 hours later, every burner profile I had was blocked. The fake dating accounts? Gone. The alias she'd used, Vera Caulfield? Deleted. She was scrubbing again. Wiping the fingerprints. Packing the mask away. But this time, I was ready. I called the team. "She's slipping. She knows someone's watching. We move now." Ethan was already prepping legal documentation. Colin had 2 contacts at local news outlets. Theo had tracked her new guy, His name was Anthony Klein, CEO of a mid-tier health startup. Perfect, because Anthony was loaded, and that meant we had leverage. We sent Emma, under her Vera alias, a message. Not threatening, just factual. We know who you are. We know what you've done. And if you don't stop, your face goes viral. We attached a file. Inside, 30 pages of evidence. Screenshots, photos, names, financial records, a link to a Google Drive labeled Victim Archive. And then the final line. Your choice, Emma. Disappear quietly or burn publicly. She didn't respond. She vanished. Again. But this time, she didn't come back. When truth becomes a weapon, silence is no longer an option. I sat at my desk with my hand hovering over the mouse. All I had to do was click. Post. But my heart was pounding. Not with fear, with electricity. Because once I clicked, everything would change. No going back. No safety net. Just exposure. Confrontation. Retribution. And finally justice. We'd spent weeks preparing the file. The Victim Archive was no longer just a spreadsheet. It was a weaponized story. A 47-page document outlining Emma's aliases, victims, methods, and shell companies. Screenshots of DMs, voice memos, text threads, and falsified bank transfers. 3 testimonials, including mine, recorded on video with clear faces and real names. A Google map overlay showing her known locations over the past 6 years. A legal summary written by a pro bono attorney we found through a Reddit thread. And, at the top of the file, a photo of her face. Half-lit, eyes forward. Captioned, do you know this woman? We launched everything at once. Hadjichi, ehi uskums, ehi hilachonships, ehi truofi my chest. Twitter/X. From burner accounts with threads like the woman who broke 17 men without lifting a finger. YouTube. A short documentary, 12 minutes of raw, cinematic truth. Medium, an article titled, The Woman Who Weaponized Love. How One Grifter Used Romance to Build a Criminal Empire. By the end of the first day, the story had 38,000 views. By the end of the second day, 1.2 million. The reactions came fast. I know her. I dated her in Tampa in 2019. She ghosted after asking me to co-sign a lease. My brother sent this to me. He almost married her. I am shaken. I'm a therapist, and this is the most clinical case of sociopathic love fraud I've ever seen. People were furious. Others were afraid. She wasn't just a manipulator. She was a mirror. And every person who'd been betrayed, gaslit, used, or heartbroken saw some part of themselves in our story. And that made it viral. Within 72 hours, the hashtag Emma the Chameleon hit the trending list on Twitter. Podcasts were covering it. TikTok therapists were dissecting her moves. Online sleuths began contributing, matching her photos to background objects, tracing her shell companies to Eastern European proxies, digging up old burner accounts connected to dating scams in 3 different states. A data journalist from a major outlet DM'd me personally. We want to run a piece. Front page. Can we quote you? And then the phone rang. Blocked number. I let it go to voicemail. Then I listened. You don't understand what you've done. You don't know who you're messing with. But you will. It was her. No name. No threat. Just a voice cold enough to stop your heart. But she was wrong. Because I didn't know who I was messing with. And this time, I wasn't afraid. With the public pressure mounting, local authorities began taking interest. 2 of the victims filed reports with formal fraud affidavits. We shared everything. Our compiled evidence was airtight. We had timelines, victim statements, and financial documentation. The FBI didn't say much, but they asked for the full file. And when they ask quietly, that's when you know things are moving. Fast. 3 days later, Emma's latest known target, Anthony Klein, reached out. He'd seen the YouTube doc. He was stunned, embarrassed, furious. He didn't just break up with her. He froze the joint account she'd set up behind his back, canceled the condo lease in both their names, filed a fraud report of his own, and in his final message to us, he said, whatever she thought she was building here, it's over. After that, she went dark. No new accounts. No new sightings. No digital trace. It was like she'd been swallowed by the earth. But we weren't worried, because now, it wasn't just us looking for her. It was thousands. Suddenly, I was being interviewed. A podcast about emotional abuse wanted me to speak on trauma recovery. A journalist offered me a book deal. A YouTube creator with 5 million subs asked if I'd co-host a video series on digital love scams. I said yes to one thing, a TEDx-style talk at a small mental health conference. And on that stage, under the lights, I said, she didn't ruin me. She revealed me. And what she found wasn't weakness. It was a man ready to rise. Let me be clear. Emma wasn't just evil. She was addicted to control, to fantasy, to being the center of someone's world. She didn't lie because she had to. She lied because it made her feel powerful. But there's one thing people like Emma always forget. Eventually, someone doesn't stay broken. And when that someone gets loud, your power ends. A month after the story broke, I got an anonymous letter. Typed. No return address. Inside, I learned it from her. But I stopped because of you. Thank you. Chilling, but also affirming. Maybe we hadn't stopped just one predator. Maybe we'd stopped others from becoming one. Maybe this wasn't just about revenge. Maybe it was about redemption. I still think about her sometimes. Late at night, wondering where she is. If she's planning her next move. If she's changed. But I don't linger. Because I'm not in her world anymore. She built a kingdom of illusions. And I burned it down. She took everything but my name. And even that, I had to learn to say again without shame. The morning I realized I was healing didn't start with a thunderclap. There were no fireworks, no chorus of angels, no victory music playing over a triumphant skyline. It was quiet. I woke up. The sun was slipping through the blinds. My sheets were clean, and they smelled like detergent, not jasmine. There was no empty wine bottle on the floor, no half-eaten takeout, no ghostly echo of her perfume in the room. I sat up, stretched, took a breath, and for the first time in almost a year, I didn't feel like I was drowning in her. I felt me. Recovering from someone like Emma isn't just about forgetting them. It's about remembering yourself. And that was the hard part. I had to ask, what do I like to eat when nobody's watching? What music makes me feel alive? What do I believe in now that someone I trusted so deeply betrayed me, so completely? I wasn't the man I was before her. But maybe that wasn't the tragedy I thought it was. Maybe I was someone better, someone forged in fire. In the weeks that followed, I started writing again. Not articles, not revenge logs, letters to Emma, to my mother, to the version of myself I left behind when I fell for the lie. I never mailed them. They weren't for them. They were for me. One night I wrote this. You taught me how dangerous charm can be. You taught me how easily pain wears a smile. But I taught myself this. You don't get to decide who I am after you. And when I read that last line out loud, I cried. Not for grief, from relief. I started cooking again. Not just microwaving or ordering cheap food out of habit. I cooked. I made my mom's old chicken soup recipe. The one she used to say cured heartbreak better than therapy. I played music while I chopped onions. I burned the rice the first few times. But eventually I got it right. And something about the steam in the kitchen, the rhythm of preparation, the smell of rosemary and garlic. It brought me back to a time before the lies. And in those quiet moments, I remembered that I was enough. Without her, without anyone. There was a time when silence felt like punishment. Now it feels like peace. I don't need someone texting me 24/7. I don't crave the dopamine drip of flattery and flirty emojis and empty affection. I've made peace with stillness. In that stillness, I've met my thoughts, faced my fears, sat across from my shame, looked it in the eye, and said, "You don't own me anymore." And the shame? It blinked first. People kept reaching out. Victims, survivors, friends of people who'd been fooled by someone just like Emma. They told me their stories. Some short, some haunting. One man wrote, "I lost everything. My savings, my house, almost my life. But your story helped me find my voice again." Another woman DM'd me. "I was the Emma for a while, but not anymore. Thank you for showing me people can change." And I realized this wasn't just about her. It never was. It was about us. All of us trying to find our way back to ourselves after someone tried to erase us. The group of us, The men who were scammed by Emma, we didn't drift apart. We started calling ourselves the Gray List, a play on blacklist, because we weren't just victims. We were witnesses to what happens when people let pain go unchecked, when loneliness becomes a weapon, when charm disguises rot. We started a private forum for victims of love scams. Over time, it grew. Hundreds of people, then thousands. And one day, someone suggested turning it into a nonprofit. So we did. Today, the Graylist Foundation is a place where people who've been emotionally manipulated, romantically, financially, psychologically, can share, heal, and fight back. Because no one should have to claw their way out of hell alone. I painted the walls, hung up art I actually liked, got rid of the couch that held the weight of all those sleepless nights. Bought a new one, soft, clean orange, the kind of color you'd never associate with grief. I opened the windows more, played music louder, laughed, even when no one was around to hear it. This wasn't just an apartment anymore. It was mine, and I loved it. A few months later, I found one last box I hadn't touched. It had her handwriting on it. Inside, a scarf she left behind. One of those silky ones she'd tie around her neck when she wanted to look elegant. There was also a letter. I'd never seen it before. Jacob, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I don't know how to love people the way they want me to. I don't know how to stop wanting things that don't belong to me. I hope one day you find someone who deserves you. I never did. I stared at it for a long time, and then I burned it. Not out of anger, but because some ghosts don't deserve a shelf. Who am I now? I'm still Jacob, still stubborn, still sentimental, still learning to trust. But I'm not broken anymore. I'm scarred, sure, but every scar is a map, and every map leads back to me. I don't need revenge anymore, because I got something better. I got myself back. Some people leave footprints on your heart. Others leave tire tracks. But every mark teaches you something, even the ones that try to run you over. Every now and then, I hear her voice in my memory. Not out loud, not in some haunted, supernatural way, but in the quiet moments, late at night, in the hum between thoughts when the brain likes to wander. Sometimes it says, "You'll never find someone like me again." And I smile. Exactly. People ask me if I regret meeting her, if I wish I could go back and erase it all. The money, the heartbreak, the nights I almost gave up. And you know what? Sometimes I do. Sometimes I wish I'd seen the signs, listened to my gut, walked away before I got burned. But if I had, I wouldn't be who I am now. I wouldn't know my own resilience. Wouldn't understand manipulation with such clarity. Wouldn't have helped hundreds, maybe thousands, of others recognize the same patterns in their lives. She was the fire, but I became the forge. If you're listening to this right now, and you've been lied to, used, gaslit, or abandoned, I want you to hear me. It's not your fault. You're not stupid. You're not broken. You were targeted because you had something they wanted. Kindness, hope, trust. Don't let them take that from you. Heal it, protect it, but don't erase it. Because the world doesn't need less heart. It just needs more people who've learned how to guard it with wisdom. Here's the part people don't tell you. Revenge fades. It flares, burns hot, and disappears in a smoke. But clarity? That stays. And it echoes in every boundary you set, every lie you spot, every toxic pattern you refuse to fall for again. The people who break us, they never expect us to rise. They expect silence. What they get is truth. And sometimes that truth gets louder than they ever imagined. She built her world on deception, but I built mine on survival. And now, I don't whisper my story anymore. I let echo. So the next time someone like her opens their mouth to lie, they'll choke on the sound of all of us rising. If this story made you feel something, hit that like button. Because chances are, someone out there needs to hear it. Someone who's still in the trap, still doubting themselves, still healing. Drop a comment. What part of Jacob's journey hit you the hardest? The betrayal? The breakdown? Or the comeback? And if you want more raw, real stories like this, stories where the bad guys don't get away and the quiet ones rise up, hit subscribe. This channel is about more than revenge.